Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm delighted to be joined even by Fiona Horne from Sotheby in New Zealand. Good evening, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I have a pleasure of seeing you on stage at AREC in a panel. I thought you were absolutely exceptional, as was everybody else on the panel as well. Marnie's been on the podcast as well. So thank you for joining me. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into agency in New Zealand?
Yeah, so my background is I worked in radio for 21 years in New Zealand as a general manager, managing sales teams and, some of the other teams within radio. I loved that. And then the radio landscape changed significantly. The introduction of Facebook and digital media definitely changed up what we did. And I could certainly see that it was going to be a very different place to work than where I'd come from. So I made the decision to leave that industry, not really knowing where I was going to. I was fortunate enough that the managing directors who own the company that I now work for rang me up and said they dealt with me, at MediaWorks, and they rang me up and said, look, we're disappointed to hear you're leaving, but we want to know where you're going and we'd love you to come and work for us. At that stage, I'd said to them I didn't want to be selling. I'd managed salespeople, but I'd never actually had to do face-to-face selling on my own, and so it wasn't really something that excited me. But they gave me a job in the management team, which I did for about 18 months, managing some of the sales managers, doing some project management and doing sales training, which I really loved. And, it sort of just morphed into a time when it made sense for me to actually be selling myself. So I think I was sort of 48, 49 when I decided to take the plunge and become an agent.
Okay, brilliant. So I just want to come back to being in radio and sales team. So what were the lessons you learned in radio that you transferred into agency?
Yeah, I think probably the main learning was about being a solutions-focused selling person. So, being really good at listening to what the clients are saying, what are they trying to achieve? I guess in real estate, it's really getting into why are they looking to sell their property? What's driving that need? So really sort of solution selling. And, one of my colleagues, when I came into real estate, said, it's about having clients for life. And in radio, that's what we did. We got clients on board and we didn't just have them for a 3 or 4 month period when we were selling their property. We had those clients for life. And I work on the very same basis with real estate. I might deal with a client through the selling of their property, and it might take 3-4 months at the moment, but they are clients for life because they'll likely sell more than one property in their lifetime.
Okay, I love that because in the UK we are way too transactional. We sell the property and that's the end of it. Most of the buyers that purchase then go into witness protection and they never hear from the agents. So how do you what is your stay in touch policy then? You sell a property and what happens?
Yeah, so we do, simple things like getting a pizza delivered on settlement day. So the day they move in, we get a pizza delivered. It's branded with my brand on it. And it arrives at about 6:30 that night. They generally, when they've moved into a property, they've had an exhausting day, moving and haven't really thought about eating. And they also generally have invited their friends and family round for a drink or something like that. So the timing of that pizza arrival is really good. One is it just makes them know that I've continued to think about them, but also it gets my brand in front of some people perhaps I haven't met yet. We then have a system where on month 3 they get a coffee card sent for a local coffee shop, just again with my branding on it. At the 6-month part, they get a letter saying we're just updating our system. How are you going? Are you still enjoying your property? And then we annually are reaching out to them to update their market appraisal on their property. And we might also remind them again about our referral system, so that if they refer friends and family to us and we then list and sell their property, there's a kickback for them.
Okay, brilliant. Love that. Really simple, really straightforward.
Yeah.
And how do you find that? How do you find people talking about you? You know, do you get other referrals as a result of that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I also use a system in New Zealand called Rate My Agent. I don't know what you have in the UK, but I do ask my clients after every transaction to do me to rate me, to give me a review on Rate My Agent, and we also use that quite strongly to drive future business. But I've had, on that pizza delivery day, for example, I've had people who I've maybe met at Media Work. So, I left there 7 years ago, who might be a friend. I've had it happen once where he was actually a friend of the person who'd moved into this house, and he sent me a photo of the pizza box saying, this is a marketing genius that you've done this. So, that it does work and it gets people chatting.
Fantastic. So you talked about branding the pizzas and the boxes, then, and the coffee. How do you build those relationships for the people that are watching with the local businesses to get them to, brand the boxes in your name?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just provide it all for them ultimately. So with the pizza box, I just went and met with the pizza, local pizza business. I made sure it wasn't a chain. That was really important, and just said to them, look, this is what I'd like to do. We provide the box, and my operations manager drops up the boxes on a Friday morning. So if we've got 3 or 4 settlements happening that day, they get 3 or 4 boxes delivered, and she pays for the pizzas at the same time. And they're quite happy just to put their pizza in our box and get it delivered. And likewise with the coffee card, we've just, that it's a coffee shop that's a couple of doors down from where we work. And I mean, I'm in there buying my coffee and my lunch, a lot of the time anyway. And I just had the same conversation with them. How would you feel? And we just go in there once a month and pick up, and pay for the coffee cards that they've collected. So we also know who's redeeming them, which is really good.
Brilliant. I love that. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So coming back to radio again, and that client for life strategy and the solution-based strategy as well. What else have you implemented as a result of that media?
Yeah, I think, it is all about, we were very, MediaWorks as a business was very focused on the client experience and the client journey. And so, I think I've always had that in my mind as, what can I do to make my clients' experience in selling their home a more pleasurable one than perhaps a competitor of mine might be providing for them. So I'm always thinking about ways that we can improve on our delivery. And I also think MediaWorks taught me very much about inspecting what I expect. So with my team around me, don't take anything for granted. Definitely empower them to do what I need them to do. But while I'm implementing and getting them into the business, making sure I inspect what they're doing to ensure that it's done the Fiona Horne way. And also relentlessly tracking numbers, so I love a good spreadsheet. I love to know where I'm at, what I'm doing at any given time. And so I'm always measuring, how many appraisals I'm doing, how many listings am I getting from that, what are my gross commission income numbers, how are they tracking against last year, the year before? Where am I seeing trends, coming through, that type of thing? And again, at MediaWorks, I was, always tracking the sales team's numbers because I had to. I had a CEO and a board that I had to be reporting to and accountable to on a sort of a weekly, monthly basis.
Okay. So what is the Fiona Horne way then?
Yeah, I don't know actually. Look, I think again, I sometimes think that I leave a lot to chance, but again, going back, everything I do is templated. So if I was out of the business, I had a five weeks off just after I spoke at Eric this year, and I could do that knowing that my team were going to roll out exactly what needed to be rolled out because. Since I started, every time I had to do an email more than once, it becomes a template. Anytime I need to do a, something a certain way, then it becomes a template. Very much everything is templated, but I guess the Fiona Horne way is to stay connected knee to knee, face to face with people. And, I'm lucky that I live in a reasonably small village of sort of 20,000 people, and it's really easy to, go to the supermarket and connect and see people. It's amazing how many clients I bump into at the supermarket. Continuing to support local business. So I always make a point that if I'm, going into, if there's a shop in town that sells something that I can also buy online, I make a point of making sure I go in there and buy it locally. But ultimately my team's job is to free me up to be knee to knee, face to face with potential sellers, almost sellers every single day.
Okay, so that's obviously one form of lead generation, all your networking, all your connections, all your face-to-face and knees-to-knees. What other ways are you generating business or market appraisals?
Yeah, so I obviously use radio because I came from that background, and I strongly believe in its reach, its way to continue to build my brand. And I don't do any call to action on radio, but I'm consistently branding myself on that medium. Obviously, social media is the new letterbox drops and door knocking. So I try and make sure I'm present on that as much as I possibly can be. I don't think I do that as well as I could do, and it's certainly in terms of a KPI for me, it's something that I do need to improve on. And we still traditionally do DLE or letter drops, just listed, just sold, that type of thing. And I don't do door knocking, but if we've got a potential client, a buyer that's looking for a particular type of property, then we'll specifically write to those homeowners and tell them we've got Peter and Jill who are looking for a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in your area. How open would you be to potentially an offer from them if we could get them through? And that actually has quite good cut through.
Okay. Do you know what? I love your wording there. How open are you?
Yeah. I stole that from
Great.
Tom Panos.
Who's Tom?
But I did Kiwi it, because he talks about how open-minded would you be, and I just think Kiwis, and we're a lot like you guys, the British, we're a little bit more reserved. So I've softened it by saying how open would you be, and nobody likes to say that they'd be closed. So it's amazing how many doors that phrase in itself will open for you.
There's a great book called Exactly What to Say. I don't know whether you've read it at all, which gives you loads and loads of magic words. So I'm going to send you something after this. Okay.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And anybody listening or watching, get in contact and I'll send you something as well. Okay. So we'll see how many listeners we have, Fiona. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Just coming back for social media. I love your reel. I could live here. I bet you could too. I thought that was brilliant. Really, really good.
Thanks.
What sort of traction do you get from that?
Yeah, really good. Actually, I get really good engagement from that. Although sometimes I'll have somebody saying, "Could you really live there, Fiona?" But most of our properties are pretty special properties, and I think I came up with that particular line when I was on a property with a buyer, and I said, "Look, I could live here," and I thought, "Oh, there's something in that." So I've kind of just created it. The biggest challenge that I have is, in the weekend just gone, I had 12 open homes, and to actually have time to do that, because that's normally when I do it, is either as I'm getting to the property or leaving it, can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. But we're doing a lot of private viewings as well at the moment. Our market's slightly changing positively, and so I am getting time to do those. But they work really well, and I get good feedback from them, from the community.
So are you finding now that properties are coming on and you've got to realign the price a lot more now?
Yeah, so we, again, in New Zealand, work very much to a no price marketing strategy in most cases. So we don't have price on our properties normally in the first 3 to 4 weeks of a campaign. I will always say to my clients, if we don't get a result in that first 3 weeks, then we're going to be very strongly recommending that we put a fixed price on it to reinvigorate the property in the marketplace. And again, one of Tom's sayings is, bread and milk doesn't get more expensive the longer it's on the supermarket shelf, and neither will your property. And I use that a lot with clients, and they get it. But, we are starting to see we've gone from very much it being a buyer's market, open homes and viewings, would have nobody turning up. In the last 6 weeks since the government, the official cash rate has dropped and the interest rates are starting to drop, we're seeing buyers back at the table. So, again, I'm saying to buyers when I'm meeting them, you need to buy now because prices are going to readjust in an upwards direction in the next 6 to 12 months. So if you don't buy now, it's going to cost you more for the same thing. And they get it because they have been turning up at open homes or viewings and being the only person there to now turning up and there's 15 other groups there. So they're seeing it themselves, which is great. We still have I guess the challenge we've got always is how do we get our vendors or our sellers to meet the market? And that comes back to what I said earlier. It's really about, why, what's their reason for selling? What is their motivation level? Is it that because they have to, or just because they think they, would like to, but they're not really, too concerned if they don't sell? And again, one of the trainers, I listen to says at the moment, list what sells. And that's what we try to do is, list the properties that are going to sell, because otherwise you carry too much stock and it's too hard to manage ultimately.
Good. Out of interest, what exceptional trainer was that?
I think that it might have been Tom as well, actually. So I do I listen to Tom. I do some one-on-one with Tom, which is really good. I've also spent a bit of time with Josh Fegan out of Australia. I find he has some really good gems in there as well. I'm all about the one-liners, I don't know what it is about me, but I can soak them up, and the next thing I know, they're spilling out of my mouth like they're my own. But I think you said it earlier, Stephen. Keep it simple, and that's what it's all about. Make it really simple. Don't overcomplicate what is a straightforward strategy and process.
Okay, so you going back to Eric, you had a couple of fantastic slides there, all about negotiation. So I personally believe that a lot of money is left on the table by agents because they're not skilled negotiators. So, for example, I've done loads of listing masterclasses recently, and I asked a very simple question. Do you own your own home? Have you bought it through? Excuse me. Have you bought it through an estate agent? And most of them said yes. And then I said to them, right, can I ask you, would you have paid more money? And literally, I would say 98% of people that I've asked this question have said they would pay anything between £250 more to £438,000 more, which is absolutely huge. And in fact, there was a gentleman, I've just come back from a training session last week, and I asked the same question, and he said he would have paid £130,000 more. Now, even £250 could be life changing. It's scary. So for me, I don't think agents demonstrate enough their negotiating skills in front of their sellers. And when I was at Eric 6 years ago, I heard a really simple line, which I think is brilliant. So Fiona, do you own your own home?
Yes, I do.
Did you buy it through an agent, not your own?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Would you have paid any more money?
So I'm probably going to say no here, but just say yes.
No. I want you to say no. Say no.
Okay, no. Okay.
So you would have lost it for $500 then?
Yeah, probably not.
Okay. Would you have lost it for $1,000?
Yes, I would have. Yeah.
Okay. What about $750?
Yeah, no, probably not.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Who would you prefer to sell your biggest tax-free asset? Me, who's demonstrated in 30 seconds I would have got your seller an extra $750, or the agent that cost your seller $750?
Yeah, well, clearly I'd sell with you. Yeah.
So the investment in my services 2% plus that or whatever you charge. And that's a really easy way of demonstrating it.
Yeah.
And that's why, actually it's a good thing that you said no, because most people start off and say no.
Yeah.
And
And
then you
the
start,
only reason I said no was because I did that exercise on myself when I did purchase this property. So, I think we went in at a number that was, we had the sort of the extra $600 on it to ensure that we did secure it. But yeah, I totally agree. I think there are too many agents that take the first offer and then just try and convince their seller that they need to take it because the agent wants to get paid. And that's the wrong attitude to take. If you go in there with dollar signs in your eyes, then you've lost track of what you're there to do, and your job is to get the very best price for the vendor.
okay, so how would you get me up on an offer then?
Yeah, so pretty much the same sort of strategy as you, and that is, and I like to tell lots of stories in my when I'm working with buyers, and so I'll say to them, look, well, let's talk about the number. Where are you starting at? And so they say, well, 500,000. So that's great, and I always write it down. I think it's good to write it down on the contract. 500,000, okay, and so if I came back to you and told you that it sold for 510,000, how are you going to feel? And they would say, well, we'd be gutted. I say, okay, so we're at 5,010. What about 20? And I just keep pitching them and pushing them, a bit like you did then. And then I talk to them when we're sort of starting to get down to the very small value numbers. I tell them a story about a buyer that rang me, and she said she'd put an offer in with another agent, and she thought it was a really good offer, but she didn't hear anything back, and then got told that it had sold to somebody else. And she said to me, I just wanted to pick your brains about what you thought about that. And I said, well, I can't comment about another agent's process. I don't know the situation that they were in, nor do I know their vendor was in the vendor's situation. The only thing I can do is tell you, once it comes through on the stats, I can tell you what it sold for. And I rang her up and I said to her, you're going to be really, really unhappy when I tell you that the property sold for $256 more than you paid or that you offered. And she said to me, but Fiona, that you would never have let us do that. You would never have let that happen to us if we'd been working with you. And I just said to her, you should have known better, actually, because you know that that's what we do. So my job is always to have that conversation with my buyers and just say to them, like, what price are you missing out?
Very simple. So, I get say exactly the same thing. So, look, thank you so much for your starting offer. I'm going to put that forward to the seller. If the seller comes back and says no, can I ask you what your no regrets offer is?
Yeah.
And again, it's amazing what you get. Just
right.
by having that dialogue.
Yeah. And look, I had one about 2 weeks ago, actually, and I managed to get. So we had multiple offers on the property. So the lower offer was just under 1.5, and I managed to get the purchaser who was in the strongest cash position up to 1.830. And, I negotiated an extra $110,000 out of that buyer for my vendor, and he's very happy. He plays in property a lot. And so, when you're talking about sort of growing profile, he's out there telling everybody how great I am at the moment. And he's worked with nearly every other agency in town.
Okay, brilliant. Absolutely love it. And the other thing I loved is on your sheet, you had what your first offer was to your last offer. And you had your last 10 sales. So, hypothetically, you could say over the last 10 sales, we've negotiated an extra 100 and, well, going on that one, $725,000 for our sellers. Now that's life changing.
Yeah. And the thing I like about it is it just goes to that point that you made earlier. You might cost them a little bit more in the percentage in the upfront cost, and it might look like it's, if they're working on their numbers, it might look like it's another $5,000, but look at what you can actually help them achieve at the other end. And I always say to my sellers, I'm confident that I'm going to cover the cost of my fee through my negotiating ability.
Okay, and you demonstrate it with that slide.
Yes, yeah, and I mean you can't argue with that. It's in black and white.
Okay, and do you take that out on every appraisal that you go on?
Yes. Yeah. So it goes into my pre-list kit. So when I go to the property in the first walkthrough, I take like a little bit of information about the brand that I work for and myself, and that also has that that table, the negotiating. And the negotiating example as well that I show. I think it might have been on that slide, which talks about the difference between what I did versus what I would have done versus the cheap agent that they went for in the end. And it meant that they were out of pocket by about $28,000, I think.
Okay, love that. Right, I'm very conscious of time, especially the time difference. So just a couple of final questions then.
It's nearly my bedtime.
Okay, well, definitely a couple of final questions then.
No, that's all good.
So you talked about Josh and you talked about Tom, and you talked about the one-to-ones that you do with Tom. Why do you think it's important to have a mentor or coach, and what difference have they made to you?
Yeah, look, I always soak up, training and information. I always have, I love it. And I think, again, it's a really simple thing to work out. People that are trying to improve in sport always have a coach. And I mean, if you're happy with where you're at and you don't want to be doing it any better or any differently, fine, just carry on doing it. But if you want to be continually improving, I think you've got to look for some assistance, some coaching, and I also I love accountability. And the thing I found, from going from a corporate where I had a CEO that I was reporting to now, at the end of the day, if I don't get it done, nobody really cares. Having somebody holding me accountable is really important to me. And also challenging, like just challenging the way that I'm doing things, saying, look, have you tried it this way? What if you did do it? And actually going out and trying those things. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But if it is working, fine tune it and make it part of your everyday.
Okay, so any recommendations on books, podcasts that you love listening to?
Yeah, so I do obviously Tom Panos, Josh Fegan. I really enjoyed Tom Ferry out of the States. He's got some really great stuff, and I just sort of soak up everybody. I mean, there is so much available to us now because of the internet and because of social media. There's really no excuse to to not find somebody that resonates with you and to use them. And for me, early on it was Tom Panos. I think he's probably had the biggest impact, but Tom Ferry also, because I think I saw him at my very first ERIC, and then I just got onto his his podcast, and I'd sit and write down word for word what he was saying, and he's got some real gems. Again, you've just got to change them up to make sure that they work within the community that you're in, because Americans do things very differently, or American Canadians do things very differently than we do here.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. Thank you for sharing so much gold. People want to get hold of you, Fiona. How do they do that, please?
Yeah, look, you can find me at New Zealand Sotheby, so fiona.horne, Horne, at NZ for New Zealand, nzsir.com.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Again, please like it, share it, take other people in, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks a lot, Fiona.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen.